When it comes to making complex materials, the industry standard is currently Substance Designer, but what about someone who's not willing to pay Adobe for a subscription? Well, in that case, there is a small software called Material Maker. Surprisingly enough, it has a lot of features of Designer. So what is this software exactly, and what can you do with it? Before we continue, let's take a moment and talk about UModeler X. Have you ever had an experience when you are building something in Unity? Even the smallest change often means switching back to Blender or Maya. You export, re-import, spot another issue, and repeat the cycle again. It interrupts the process and pulls you out of the project, but UModeler X will be your 3D assistant inside Unity, keeping everything in one place. It brings modeling and texturing tools straight into the editor. You can extrude, bevel, and snap geometry right into your scene, which makes it easier to block out levels or reshape props without leaving Unity. There are also UV tools for unwrapping and packing, along with painting textures for quick color adjustments. And if you're working with imported assets, the UModeler X function converts them into editable meshes, so you can tweak details or combine parts directly in the project. I really love the idea of having a 3D assistant or modeling module directly inside Unity. The whole idea is staying inside one environment, from small edits to pressing play. So if you want to give it a try, you can use the link below for a 20% discount. Material Maker began as a small hobby project around 2018, created by a developer known by the alias Rodzilla. First released in 2018, it was initially just a simple procedural texture generator built on the Godot game engine. The developer chose Godot as the foundation, and he was inspired by Godot's node-based architecture in addition to its ease of use. Early versions of Material Maker were quite limited. I mean, they had only around 20 basic nodes which you can play around with, but the concept was promising, an open source tool to make PBR texture maps via a Substance Designer-like workflow. Over time, the project grew dramatically, so what started as a small tool to tinker with textures actually evolved into kind of a robust software with tons of nodes, community funding, and third-party contributors. And now, it even has texture painting features, and all of that for free. Material Maker hit a big milestone with version 1.0 back in 2022, making its coming of age as a stable tool. Since then, it has continually evolved, with version 1.4, which came last year in 2025, added more features and polish, and the recent version 1.5 that just came a week or two ago made it even better. And this project is maintained under the almighty open source license, and it is actively developed, and they're even planning for a Steam release. So if you are interested in the software, here are some of its core tools and features. First of all, you will build materials by connecting nodes in the graph. There are over 200 built-in nodes as I said, spanning generators including patterns, noises, filters, transforms, mixers, etc. Nodes can create or modify textures, and you can string them together to produce complex results. Uniquely, Material Maker doesn't render an intermediate image at each node. Instead, it combines shaded code until needed, which means textures stay resolution independent until you choose to export them. If the built-in library isn't enough, you can even create custom nodes by grouping existing ones or writing your own GLSL or shader code. Maker is great for PBR materials because you can easily generate all types of texture maps, including albedo, normals, roughness, metalness, ambient occlusion, etc., which defines a PBR material. Also, a real-time 3D preview is provided, so you can apply your material to a built-in sphere, or maybe a cube, or even a custom 3D model, and see how it looks under lighting. Once you're happy with that, you can export the material. Export can be just image files, or complete materials for game engines. It can also output ready-to-use material files for Godot and Unity, and it even supports Unreal Engine. Beyond node graphs, Material Maker includes an experimental 3D painting mode. This is similar to a lightweight version of Substance Painter. You can load a 3D model and paint on it directly, with brushes that paint multiple channels at once. What makes it powerful is that your brushes can be procedural, and you can paint with patterns in different mapping modes, like brush space, screen space, texture space, and so on. The painting system supports layers, which includes paint layers, procedural layers, mask layers, and so on, for complex texturing workflow. While this feature is still evolving, I think it is a neat all-in-one aspect of the Material Maker software. And by the way, it also has an online community hub, where users share materials, node groups, brushes, and more. The software also links to a website library of hundreds of free materials and nodes which are contributed by the community, so you can download these and use in your own projects, or maybe contribute yourself. In practice, I would say using Material Maker feels like playing in a sandbox of procedural textures. For example, you might start with a Perlin noise node, feed it into a threshold filter to get a splotchy pattern, blend it with a brick pattern node, and hook that into a PBR material node, which outputs the final maps. All the while, the 2D preview shows each node's output, and the 3D preview lets you rotate a model with your material on it to check how it looks. So how does Material Maker stack up against the industry standard Substance Designer? Well, first of all, Material Maker is completely free and open source, as I said before. In contrast, Substance Designer is a paid product, either part of Adobe subscription or one-time license. Also, Substance Linux version is only in an expensive enterprise tier. For an indie user or student, Material Maker's price is actually unbeatable, whereas Substance Designer might be a significant investment, especially on a long-term basis. And Material Maker's MIT license also means you can use it or modify it with virtually no restrictions, whereas Substance Designer is actually proprietary and closed source. When it comes to features and tools, Substance Designer is very mature. I mean, it has been production proven for more than a decade in different industries, and it has hundreds of nodes and filters, which are far more than Material Maker's currently. This, in addition to advanced features like neat 2D vector drawing tools, instancing, scan processing, and integration with Substance source library. Material Maker started small, but it has grown. I mean, it now offers, as I said, 200 plus nodes, covering most common needs, including generators, noise, shapes, blends, etc., in addition to unique ones like 3D SDF nodes. However, there are still some things that Designer has Material Maker might lack or handles less elegantly. For example, Designer's library include very specialized nodes, for example for terrain, various noises, procedural scratches, etc., and it supports functions like FX maps for custom-coded logic, whereas Material Maker nodes chat, while extensive, might miss certain exotic nodes. Users sometimes note the absence of exact equivalents of some Substance nodes, but in practice, Material Maker can create most typical materials like different woods, bricks, metals, etc., and even quite complex ones, but extremely sophisticated materials might be easier to achieve in Substance due to its broader toolset. One advantage for Material Maker is the integrated 3D painting, which Substance Designer itself doesn't do, simply because Adobe splits it into Substance Painter and Substance Designer. But to be honest, this was the case even before Adobe acquired Algorithmic. So Material Maker tries to cover both Designer and a bit of Painter simultaneously in one program. So if you need all the power you can get, Substance is no doubt the best, but Material Maker is surprisingly capable for a free tool, and it is closing the gap for many different use cases. When it comes to usability and the learning curve, this one actually goes both ways. Substance Designer has a polished UX and UI, developed over the years, so it is slick with high quality of life features like dockable panels, custom hotkeys, built-in tutorials on the home screen, etc. Also, there is a wealth of learning resources for Substance, including tutorials, courses, and documentation given its popularity. However, Designer can feel overwhelming, especially to newcomers, because it has a lot of depth. In addition, the user needs to be familiar with the technical art concepts. Material Maker, on the other hand, aims to be more approachable and lightweight, but it doesn't mean it is way easier. Its UI is functional and fairly straightforward, especially if you've used any node editor before, like in Blender or Unreal. Being based on Godot's UI, it might not have that ultra refinement of Adobe's UI, and indeed, some users find certain UX elements clunky. For example, limited hotkey customization or Godot-style dialog windows. The learning resources from Material Maker are fewer, so you won't find as many tutorials or courses available on it. and its community, while friendly, is way smaller. That said, Material Maker's simplicity can benefit beginners. There are fewer nodes to learn initially, and the community material examples are great to study. And if you're a beginner or new to making materials, you might actually get up and running making materials faster in Material Maker compared to Substance, because the scope is a bit narrower and the interface is a bit simpler. Also, Substance Designer benefits from being industry standard, meaning it fits into different pipelines, whether it be Unreal, Unity, Blender, Maya, etc., via exported textures or direct integration. Many engines support Substance files through plugins, and Adobe's ecosystem also means you can round-trip materials between Substance Painter, Designer, and Sampler seamlessly. As you know by now, Material Maker is built with game engine usage in mind. It exports PBR textures that any engine can use, and it specifically has one-click export presets for Godot, in addition to Unity and Unreal. For Godot engine users, Material Maker is almost a part of the ecosystem, so you can export a Godot material resource, which is ready to use, which is fantastic for Godot developers. In Unreal and Unity, you will use the exported maps or run the provided script for Unreal Engine 5 to reconstruct the material. Substance's integration is a bit more direct, I mean for those engines, via Substance Engine, but ultimately both tools output the same kind of end product. One notable difference: Substance materials can be kept procedural in the engine if you use its file format and the engine plugin, whereas Materials Maker exported materials are baked, meaning it doesn't have an in-engine runtime for adjusting the procedural generation on the fly. But for most game dev uses, that's fine. You usually just need bitmaps, but for high-end use cases like allowing material parameter turning in an editor or game, Substance has an edge, and it is much better. And there you have it, guys. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, please subscribe to the channel to receive more videos like this. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.